What's up, guys? Joe Munoz, OneStepPrep.com. We're going to talk energy management, some rules of thumb that I live by, that I would advise and advocate for. And before I get into it, I just want to share with you some of the stabilized approach criteria that I'm going to share with you here. Could vary from carrier to carrier. So at the end of the day, you need to do what your carrier says you need to do, okay? But apart from that, I'm doing everything predicated on the fact that we want to be stable, meaning on localizer, glide slope, final approach course, on the final glide path. Fully configured, checklist complete by 1,000 feet. I'm going to speak slower because I realize sometimes I get ahead of myself, but it's primarily because I got a lot to share with you. And today is no different than any other video that I've recorded for you. I'm also going to talk at the end of this video about a few things that relate to the Academy here and our prices, which by the way are on our website, unlike any other school, but we're as transparent as they come. So with that, let's share with you some energy management tips, okay? Uh-oh, we got people in the studio, but we won't put them in the video. That's okay. All right, they're freaking out. Okay, check it out. Here's the first thing I'm going to share with you. I'm going to use Fort Lauderdale as an example. I got the chart next to me. It's runway 10 left. Here is the first thing I would share that I personally do on my approach charts. 10 left, Fort Lauderdale. And we're going to do Denver too as another example so we can get away from sea level airport and I can show you how that's going to look. But anyways, the touchdown zone elevation is the number I'm looking for. Touchdown zone elevation on the approach chart, I'm going to round, I'm always going to go up. So it's 7 feet according to the chart. So 7, I'm going to go up to 100. Okay, so we're going to say touchdown zone elevation 100 even though it's 7. And the reason why is because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2,000 feet to this. So 100 plus 2,000, that's 2,100. Now, what is that number, Joe? 2,100 or 2,000 above touchdown zone elevation is the latest point to put the gear down. So this is the latest altitude for gear down. Now, I need to be stable at that number, touchdown zone elevation rounded up, plus 1,000. So I need to be stable at 1,100 feet. And I'm even being a little conservative, right? Because being that it's a sea level airport at 1,000 feet, we can say 1,000. I'm going to keep it at 1,100 to be even more conservative. So gear down at 2,100, stable at 1,100. Now, how do I make sure that I end up stable at 1,100 feet? There's a whole slew of things we can do. We got an energy management course on that, but I'm going to give you a couple tips here, okay? And one of them is I would find a waypoint that is approximately 10 DME on the approach. So if this is my approach profile, here's my runway, here's my glide slope coming down, or glide path in the case of an RNAV. I'm looking for a waypoint approximately 10 DME, okay? Now, in this case, 10 left, Fort Lauderdale. The waypoint happens to be Warrer. I think that's how you pronounce it. So what I do is I highlight this point on the chart. I highlight Warrer, which is approximately 10 DME, and this is where I would like to be in a flaps 2 configuration, preferably 180 knots. 180 knots, flaps 2, 10 DME. And I find a waypoint and highlight it so that I can very simply just look at my navigation display and see, oh, I'm approaching Warrer. I need to be at 180 flaps 2. Now keep in mind, this is not a definitive I have to be here. This is a reference point. Under ideal circumstances, that'd be great to be there, 180 flaps 2 at that point. Sometimes, maybe it works out where I need to be a little bit faster, a little bit slower. That's okay. I need a reference point, though, from which I can now say, hey, I'm a little bit ahead or behind the curve in terms of energy management. The other thing is it makes a great talking point in the briefing to tell the pilot monitoring, hey, just for your awareness, my energy management plan, okay, is to be obviously stable at 1,000. And I'm looking to be 180 flaps 2, somewhere around 10 DME. That's going to be around Warrer. So if you see me doing anything other than that, just back me up on that little CRM so that you don't leave the pilot monitoring wondering, when are they going to slow down? Or do they have any idea of what it takes to slow down? And in the new realm of aviation, what we're seeing is more GA pilots go into the world of jets that are not quite acclimated to the deceleration profile of a jet. So there is some challenges with energy management, especially for you GA pilots or even the turboprop pilots transitioning into the world of jets. So again, this is a reference point. Hopefully this is helpful for you. Now this is at sea level, so now let's take it to Denver where we have an elevation I think of like 5,300 feet or something to that effect. And I'm gonna use 3-5 right as the example because that's the chart that I happen to have pulled up here. So 3-5 right, I have landed on this runway before. The touchdown zone elevation is 5,370, so stay with me here. All right, let's do this example together. So 5,370 feet touchdown zone elevation. We're going to round up So that's 5,400. 5,400 plus 2,000. Okay, nothing better than doing public math on a camera for a YouTube video. So 7,400 is where I'm going to put the gear down. That's the latest point. And then I got to be stable at 6,400. So this is stable. Okay, how did I get this number? Touchdown zone elevation, round it up. Remember, this is ILS. I'm looking at 35 right in Denver here. Okay, so that number plus 2,000 got me to my 7,400. That number plus 1,000 got me to my stable by. Now I need to figure out where I'm going to be 180 flaps to on the profile coming in for this approach. So I look to the profile view, okay, and on the profile view, I'm going to find drum is 14 DME, and then the next waypoint is going to be Franz, which is at 7. So we don't really have one that's going to work out. That's the short answer. We got this one at 14, and we got another one over here at 7. So it's going to be somewhere in between. So I'm always going to err on the side of being conservative. Okay. So I'm going to highlight Franz, or no, I'm not. I'm going to highlight drum. That's the more conservative one at 14. Again, do I need to be 180 flaps to 14 miles away? No, I think that's like overly conservative. You're too slow at this point. But I know that after I pass drum, shortly thereafter, somewhere in between these points, I would ideally like to be 180 flaps to, so I can swing gear at 74, and I'll always be stable at 6,400. So hopefully that helps you. Now I'm going to give you some other rules of thumb that I like to live by, okay? If I am doing 250 knots and I need to decelerate to 180 knots, how many total knots do I need to lose? This is 70 knots to lose, right? And the rule of thumb in jets, if you don't already know, is that I need 1 nautical mile for every 10 knots that I need to lose, right? So 70 divided by 10 is 7. I need 7 nautical miles of level flight. It's important to note that, level flight, to slow down from 250 to 180. This is assuming no spoilers, no funny games or business to try to get slowed down. This is just a, boom, reduce the speed and let the speed decelerate and let the energy bleed off. 7 miles, level flight. Now, what if I'm already on the glide slope, like what happens in Los Angeles or Chicago? They clear you for the approach, you're several miles out, you're already on a descending path, you're doing 250 knots, and now I got to reduce to 180. I still got to slow through a 70 knot envelope, and what I'm going to need is 2 miles now for every 10 knots that I need to lose. So we do the same math, only we times it by 10, right? So 70 divided by the 10 is 7, but now since I'm descending, I need 2 nautical miles, so I need a total of 14 nautical miles, roughly, assuming no use of spoilers or nothing, or gear, in order to get down, or to slow down, better said. This is rough math, rule of thumb, right? Get you in the ballpark. Obviously, you're going to look at the scenario, the airspeed envelope, maybe it's gusty, maybe it's bouncing around on the speed tape, what have you. So this is what you're going to need to look to identify as you're making your approach in. Now, some other things. Air traffic control typically is going to give you speed constraints of 210 to 10 and 170 to 5. What does that mean? Let's say this is my approach profile. And they'll say, trainer 1, maintain 210 to 10. That means maintain 210 knots until I'm 10 DME, right? 10 nautical miles away. Well, typically you just heard me say, hey, I want to be 180 flaps 2 at 10. Well, ideally, right? But I don't have to be. And in this case, obviously they want me to keep the speed up, so they're pushing the envelope a little bit. Now, what does this mean to me? Well, I'm 30 knots faster than what I would like to be. Not a big deal. I can still use the tools we have, including spoilers and gear, right? But I know that I'm a little bit behind where I would want to be, so I'm just going to have to be more vigilant and probably work a little bit more to get the jet slowed down. They also give frequently 170 to 5, right? 170 knots until 5-mile final. 5-mile final is basically 1,500 feet. This typically coincides with the final approach fix. And this is only 500 feet away from being stable. Okay, so are they pushing a little bit here? Yeah, again, probably it's a dense traffic situation. You're going into a place like Atlanta, or even sometimes, honestly, Fort Lauderdale or Miami. And they're looking to get this thing, keep the traffic moving. So can it be done? Of course. We do this every day. There's nothing abnormal here. It just kind of lets you know mentally, hey, be prepared to be proactive and vigilant on the speed and getting ready to configure accordingly and get things wrapped up by 1,000 feet to be stable. So very common speed constraints. Finally, I'm going to leave you with this, okay? Because there's several ways we can enter the traffic pattern. What if I enter from downwind? What if I enter from base leg? What if I enter from straight in, okay? What if they give me some Proceed direct to, like Atlantic City, very common. Proceed direct to the final approach fix, cleared for the approach. Always the unstable approaches come when you're cleared for a visual approach, and then the pilot has to figure out how to get stable at 1,000 feet. Usually when you're IMC or you're being vectored and everything onto an ILS, it's usually less likely that you're going to end up unstable. It's more likely when you're downwind Detroit at 12,000 feet in the middle of the night, clear for the approach when you report in sight at your 3 o'clock and 10 miles, like what happened to me, okay? So now you got to figure out, how do I get this thing down? Well, let's talk about one of the examples, which is a straight in, okay? And there's several. And I'm telling you folks, our energy management course, particularly for the A320, covers all this, plus more. Top of descent planning, 3-to-1 math, deceleration, constraints, geometric versus idle path. Like, I could be here all day. This is a whole ground school on energy management if we really want to turn it into that. But here's the deal. If I'm doing 250 and I want to slow 250, I want to slow to 180, okay? The last or the latest point for me to begin or initiate the slowdown is 15 nautical miles. 15 nautical miles prior to the airport. If it's a straight-in approach, I'm going to start slowing down, assuming I have a level flight segment. If I'm already descending on the glide slope, I'm going to probably need a few more miles on top of that. And if you're not comfortable in the plane, you're new to the jet, add a few more miles as well. Now, I want to share with you what I mentioned earlier, which is a little bit about our academy. Our school, we offer ATP, CTP, initial, upgrade. You're looking to get an FAA ATP. You're looking to get yourself a 320 or a 737 NG type, okay? Let's talk about that. The CTP course is $4,500. But Joe, I called down the street and they said, we can do it for $3,900. How come yours is $4,500? Well, folks, the reason for that is because we don't profess to have the cheapest training, we just profess to have the best training. And I can tell you that not because it's my school or I founded the thing, I'm telling you because I worked at every school you can imagine in the 142 world, certainly here in Florida. And after seeing a lot of what works, I mostly found out what doesn't work. And I know a lot of people have pretty web pages, but when you find out what's actually going on, when you figure out the caliber of training you're receiving, the processes from the administrative staff, which are with me here in this lovely studio right now, who will remain nameless, but you'll meet them in person when you come here, okay? I assure you, you're going to be in a good culture, in a good environment, and in somewhere that feels like home, and you're receiving the best quality training. Everything that's cheap in the long run ends up expensive. Lo barato sale caro. For those of you that don't understand Spanish, that means what I just said, which is just pay to play. Pay for what you need. We got an initial course. By the way, the CTP, this is a 6-day program, okay? It's 4 days of ground, 1 day in a fixed base sim, and then 1 day in a motion sim. The initial course is 17 days of training. Tack on a few days of days off so you don't overheat, okay, while you're here. And what you're looking at probably is about a 22-day footprint. Initial price tag for A320, if I'm not mistaken, is $16,500. New and improved pricing here in 2024. The reason for that is our friend inflation. We've had some several cost increases from our end, from everything from rent to sim lease, hourly rates, etc. So obviously it's translating a little bit here in the cost. And then we have the upgrade curriculum for those of you that have actively flown the aircraft or are PIC typed within the last 35 months, roughly 3 years. We can get you in a 7-day program. That's 3-day ground, 3 sims, and a check ride with an oral. And you'd be looking at $8,500, $8,500. But Joe, as I break the whiteboard, okay? I called down the street and it was only $7,500 or $7,900. So I can save $600. You might save $600, but you're going to miss a lifetime of experience and opportunity with your friends here, J&J, along with some other very highly qualified team members here, okay, that you'll meet when you show up. And all the AX3 instructor staff that we have here. I'm just sharing with you, what's the price that you put on your education? And if you're going to go for a $600 discount for what is going to be $6 million worth of value of training, I am sharing with you definitively, folks, as I said, look for the best training you can equip yourself with. And are there other places that are a few bucks cheaper? Yeah, and you're going to pay for it. And I assure you, you will, because I've worked at most of them. And that's ultimately what motivated me to start my own place, figuring out what didn't work very well. So we'll see you here. Juan and Joe, your friends and training program success. Let's get the chicken in this shot, okay? OneStepPrep.com, OneStepPrepAcademy.com, OneStepPrep.net, and soon to come another One Step Prep website, which will be at a later video we're going to announce. So hopefully you found lots of value in the video. Come hang out with your rubber chicken. Where's the SpongeBob? We got a SpongeBob over here in the corner. I can't get to it right now. But anyway, if you come in Miami, you'll see it here.